So during lockdown, we're going to be following some of the walk around Alderney trails. There are 9 of these that are prepared by Visit Alderney, and they cover an awful lot of the footpaths the Wildlife Trust manage. And they just get you out. Well, we've got these 2 hours of exercise, we might as well get out and about the island. Today I'm heading out and about with my kids. So today we're going to get out on walk number 9, the Port Albert and Bibette trail, and we're out with Theo and Poppy, and we're about to head off. This little house here was where the surrender was recorded in Alderney in 1945 between the Germans and the British. I suppose one of the real challenges of lockdown is finding ways to just get out of the house within that 2-hour window and burning off steam. So we have the Douglas Quay. This is the first main quayside built in Bray. Behind it, the breakwater, built 100 or more years later. Douglas Quay was built around 1705, and the breakwater around 1847, or started 1847. Before this, the harbour was Longy, and the Douglas Quay with its slipway here, which used to run all the way up in front of the warehouses that were built around 1730, all the way up to where the road is now. Were the main facilities. This is how you unloaded all your goods and chattels into Alderney. And you can see these are warehouses. You can see with the roofs sloping backwards and those upper windows now designed for luxury bedrooms at the top of the Bray Beach. It used to be where the gantries would hang out and the cranes would lift goods off the quayside and up into the warehouses. Theo's doing his bit for a beach watch, finding a whole load of nurdles on the beach, which we find floating around the sea all the time. These are little plastic nodules that are used in plastic processing that get washed into the sea and stay in the system forever, unfortunately. Bray Harbour was constructed as a harbour of refuge, a place for the British fleet, but also for merchant shipping. This breakwater originally was 1 mile long, and to defend the harbour, 18 forts and batteries were built around the island. Up here on the hillside we've got Fort Albert, or the Albert complex, with the fort on top of the hill, the walls running down into the arsenal complex, which were stores and equipment workspaces, and then up on the hillside above it, Mount Hale Battery, which was one of the few batteries on the islands rather than full forts, and was a mortar fort, a mortar battery. An incredible complex and one of the most impressive forts in the Channel Islands. Coastal erosion isn't a new problem, but with sea level rise, which is speeding up rapidly at the moment, we're seeing more and more of the island's coastline exposed to erosion. And here you can see some of the Victorian walls built to defend the arsenal are heavily undermined and may well drop in the near future. Heading up the track towards Fort Albert now. On the right hand side, this huge field with the horses in was part of the glacis system that surrounded the fort. A glacis is just a smooth slope prepared so that the soldiers up on top could fire down it, kill approaching soldiers. Here it's a huge area, about 50 hectares, and now largely horse grazed. Occasionally migratory birds and things will use it, yellow wagtails and other bits and pieces will drop in on it. At this point we're coming up the Albert Path and we're coming to where the old ditch was. So this is a big old structure that dug down and prevented you from getting up to the fort. There was a wall down to the arsenal, and up here you had this ditch maybe 30-40 feet deep that runs all the way around the fort. And where we're stood here would be in a rolling drawbridge. It would have driven your horse and cart or your soldiers onto it, and it would have been drawn across to the other set of concrete marks over there, and there would be a second one further up where the ditch comes back round the fort and back out again. Up here at Fort Albert you can see all the way out to Casquet's Lighthouse, the end of Alderney, 9 miles away from the harbour, and also out to Ortac, the second of the 2 Greenwich colonies, and then Baru Sorry to say, as you go around you do find increasing amounts of cans, Haribo bags, plastics, chip packets, which luckily the chip shop is stocking cardboard boxes now, but it is something, especially during COVID, we've really got to stop. Not just mask dropping, but any sort of littering is a chance to spread it if it gets to the island. In the course of the next month or two during lockdown, we're going to do these walks and tours of following the Visit Alderney routes around the island. Partially because we all need something to keep us a bit sane, also because a lot of these paths, like the one behind us, we have to cut as part of the Wildlife Trust's commitment to the States of Alderney, and though we can't actually manage them at the moment under the lockdown criteria, we can keep an eye on them during our exercise time and give a good list of what we need to start on as soon as we get into spring. From up here at the back of Fort Albert, we get our first proper view of Bibette Head down below us. This is where the walk ends at Strong Point Biberkoff. The Strong Point's got an awful lot of information points. We're just going to nip into a couple of bunkers today. One of the first bunkers you find within the Strong Point here is a searchlight position. You'll find lots of these around Alderney. This one's got information boards to explain all about what it is. Another good one to visit is in Fort Torgy. The bay down in Bibette Head is one of the most spectacular, though the seas can get really rough. There are some fairly deep gullies that cut right out from the shoreline here, which in the calmer days of summer are incredible places to go snorkeling. You see big spider crabs close to shore. I've even seen a sunfish here, which was spectacular. So we've got this little sign here that shows you a way around, and each of the bunkers that are marked in here have their own information points. It's worth an explore, but this is a time of COVID, so do be careful when you're using the sites, please. Don't handle things or touch the boards, and be aware of people and wear your mask. Back in 2006 we surveyed this area, and bizarrely this little short grassland area in the car park here has more species diversity than almost anywhere else on the island. There are something like 29 species per square metre of small flowering plant. Looking down towards the end of the headland here, we get some great views of Soy Bay and Hume de Pierre, the rock in the middle. These areas are really actually very important breeding sites for some of our shorebirds. We're lucky to have really significant numbers of oyster catchers, shag around the island, and a number of other species, including common tern. And these areas, you really do have to think in the summer about the effect you might have on them, especially if you're a dog walker or if you want to go climbing out onto the rocks. This section of path is often washed away. All this rough rubble here used to make up the camouflage. Rough blasted rock stuck on top of this bunker and up to the headland here to create a hidden feature, and off to our left hand side would have been a covered walkway embankment that the soldiers could fire from. This bunker was originally designed for a coastal defence gun, a big 10.5 centimetre gun, and here we can see an aerial photograph showing where it sits within the site as a whole, right out here on the end of the headland. We work with the Alderney Society to try and make sure people can access this and see information about what was here and why it was constructed. Off on one of the side passages you'll find the old ditch that was dug up to the headland, which was then concreted over. One of the reasons the Wildlife Trust gets involved in these sites is because the fortifications of Alderney have shaped Alderney for the last, 2,000 years at least, from the Roman onwards. And a lot of our landscape and most precious habitats are those associated with these fortifications. Here in Bibette Head we have one of the richest coastal grasslands because of the fortifications and afterwards the parking of people coming to visit it. We're walking into the end bunker here, which is regularly flooded. Not today though. It's a good thing since we can't pump it out during COVID. You can see into the old sharp and turn, the last surviving one on Alderney, a steel dome turret used for machine gunners, which would have been gas tight and enable them to shoot over the mouth of the harbour. It's no longer safe to climb up inside the structure, but you can come inside and look at it once we've drained the water out. If you want to go out and exploring, you can find all the walking guides on the Visit Alderney website. You can also find a great walking map that the Wildlife Trust and the Alderney Society put together with Visit Alderney on the Wildlife Trust site. And you can find a lot of Trevor Davenport's books about the fortifications of the island that will tell you a lot more about these sites in great detail. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I'm sorry it's our first attempt, so it's a bit rough and ready.